I believed I understood what strength meant. Then a human female ripped a reinforced door from its hinges simply because someone had harmed her friend. I have been teaching at the Galactic Military Academy for 20 standard cycles, and I thought I had already witnessed everything. Every species, every temperament, every type of cadet that crawls, slithers, or marches through these corridors. My name is Kel. I am Vexorian. And before it is asked, yes, we are known for our extra forearms and our sense of superiority. That last point is a fair accusation. Station Prometheus 7 is not an ordinary training center. This is where the Galactic Coalition sends its most capable individuals to be shaped into officers, tacticians, warriors, the highest tier of the elite. We train Krell battlemasters who can twist steel with their bare hands. We instruct Thorian siege experts whose exoskeletons can endure direct plasma fire. We prepare Zendra pilots with reaction speed so precise they can pass through asteroid fields without sight. This facility produces champions, and it does so efficiently. Here, certain rules exist. They are not written down, but they are understood by all. The strong advance, while the weak must adjust or be removed. Physical power leads to respect, respect leads to authority, and authority defines one's position within the hierarchy. It has been done this way for thousands of years across countless worlds. You prove your worth through combat trials, endurance exams, and tests of strength. Rank is earned not only through academic study, but by showing that you can defeat an enemy when required. I know how it sounds. It feels harsh. It feels outdated. But consider this, out in the empty space between stars, when a ship is boarded or an outpost comes under attack, you need fighters. You need soldiers who will hold their ground, who will not panic, who have already been tested under pressure. For that reason, we allow cadets to form their own hierarchy. We monitor the process, of course, but we let it unfold naturally. The strongest rise to the top. The others move into support positions or transition into administrative paths. There is no disgrace in that. Not everyone is suited for combat duty. Then there was Marcus Webb, a human male. About 1.7 meters tall, perhaps 65 kilograms at most. Thin arms, thin legs, thin build overall. His skin was pale, as if it had rarely seen real sunlight. Dark hair hung over his eyes, and a constant nervous tension seemed to follow him everywhere. His technical scores were extremely high. In fact, they were exceptional. He led his class in systems engineering, advanced computing, and tactical analysis. His mind was impressive. His physical condition, however, was another matter. When he arrived at Prometheus 7, the other cadets looked at him once and immediately placed him in the category of non-threatening. I felt sympathy for him, honestly. But this was the academy. This was the established system. You do not overturn 1,000 years of tradition because one species sends candidates who are, frankly, not physically imposing. Earth had only been part of the coalition for around 15 cycles. They were still new, still working to establish credibility. They had sent capable soldiers before, large, durable, intimidating individuals. Marines who looked as if hardship was routine for them. Pilots with that intense, predatory focus humans are known for. Marcus did not fit that pattern. He kept his head lowered when he walked. He tensed when larger cadets moved too close. He spent his free hours in the library archives or engineering labs, not in combat simulators or training halls. He was highly intelligent, without question. But intelligence has limits when surrounded by species that place supreme value on physical strength. I watched him struggle during combat training. I saw him thrown aside like a training prop by Kraulex cadets who outweighed him by more than 100 kilograms. I saw him fail strength evaluations, barely complete endurance runs, and stumble through weapons exercises. He never complained. I will acknowledge that. He simply kept arriving, kept making an effort, kept absorbing the setbacks. Still, it was obvious to everyone. Marcus Webb was not suited for combat roles. At best, he belonged in support functions, at worst, he was expendable. The other cadets sensed vulnerability the way predators sense blood. It was subtle at first, nothing openly hostile, routine challenges, bumping into him in hallways, taking his place in the mess hall, casually knocking his data pad from his hands. Typical displays of dominance. Marcus endured it without resistance, which within the Academy's social order signaled acceptance of the lowest rank. That seemed reasonable. I assumed he would find a role, make himself useful in other capacities. Not everyone is meant to be a frontline fighter. At the time, I was an instructor in tactical theory, a mid-level but respectable appointment. I had my own courses, my own duties. I noticed Marcus, yes, and I saw his difficulties, but I did not step in. There was no reason to, as I saw it then. This was the system at work. This was how cadets learned their position, how they understood where they belonged within the larger military structure. Weakness was not protected. It either stabilized at its level or was eliminated. Harsh, perhaps, but effective. Without question. Additionally, humans were still something of an unknown to us. Odd, upright omnivores from a high-gravity planet called Earth. They spoke often about cooperation and unity, yet appeared divided and uneven. Some of their soldiers were terrifying when equipped with combat armor. Others, like Marcus, appeared almost delicate. We did not truly understand them at that point, not their psychology, not their culture, not their group behavior. They had not been present long enough for meaningful analysis. That misunderstanding, especially regarding their internal dynamics, was our first major error. A serious one, as events would later prove. But I am moving ahead too quickly. This account, this complete disaster of a night that permanently changed my view of an entire species, began on an entirely routine day. Third rotation, evening cycle. Most cadets were finishing their assigned training sessions. I was in my office, reviewing lesson materials, when I heard raised voices coming from Training Hall 7. That was not unusual. Cadets often released tension, resolved conflicts, or asserted status through sparring. It was common background noise at the academy. I should have taken notice. I should have gone to investigate. But I did not, because I believed I understood how things functioned. I believed I knew the rules. 20 cycles of experience had convinced me I had seen everything. I was mistaken. The voices grew louder, sharper, more aggressive. And yes, fine. My curiosity took over. I saved what I was working on and went down to the observation deck overlooking Training Hall 7. The space followed the standard design, reinforced walls, equipment racks lining the sides, and a wide open area in the center used for drills and sparring. The lights were set to evening cycle levels, throwing long shadows across the floor. What I saw through the observation window made me stop, not, I admit, because I intended to step in. Marcus Webb was standing in the middle of the hall with his back against a support column, and he was not alone. 3 senior cadets had surrounded him. I recognized them immediately. Dravkin, a third-year Qulex, was built like an armored transport, pure muscle paired with arrogance. Beside him stood Zell, a Thorin whose exoskeleton was marked with combat awards from the previous semester's war games. The third was Quinn, another Qulic, slightly smaller than Dravkin but known for being more aggressive and for testing limits. This was no chance meeting. It was deliberate. They had waited until after hours, when the hall was empty and no instructors were scheduled nearby. It was calculated, in a distorted sense of intelligence. Dravkin did most of the talking, his voice carrying clearly through the observation deck's audio feed. So, little human, I've been looking over the latest strength assessment results. Yours are, how should I say this? Embarrassing. Yes, embarrassing. You scored lower than even the Pishian cadets, and they have hollow bones. Marcus kept his head lowered, arms at his sides, clearly trying not to escalate things. When he spoke, his voice was soft but controlled. I met the minimum requirements. I'm focusing on my technical specialties. Oh, kid. Wrong answer, I thought, wincing slightly. Never explain yourself to predators. Never show vulnerability. Quinn let out a sharp, barking laugh. Technical specialties? You mean hiding behind computers because you can't handle real combat? Tell me, human, what does your weak little planet even contribute to the coalition? You've been members for, what, 15 cycles? And what have you offered? Primitive ballistic weapons? Crude chemical engines? It's ridiculous. Zell stepped closer, using his size to press Marcus tighter against the pillar. I hear Earth is a paradise world. Mild climate, plenty of resources, hardly any natural predators. No wonder you're soft. You come from a nursery planet and think you can pretend to be a soldier among real warriors. Watching this, I felt a trace of disgust. I believe in hierarchy. I believe in natural selection. But 3 against 1, after hours, was not dominance or discipline. It was cruelty for amusement. Still, I did not act. Not yet. Part of me, the part shaped by 20 cycles in this system, thought Marcus might need to learn this lesson. Maybe he needed to realize he did not belong here. Maybe this would push him toward a program better suited to him. That part of me was wrong, though I did not recognize it at the time. Marcus tried to shift sideways, attempting to remove himself from the situation. Dravkin immediately blocked him, one heavy hand slamming Marcus back into the pillar. Where do you think you're going? We're discussing your future. Some of us think you're wasting a slot that should belong to a real warrior. Some of us think you should quit. Go back to your soft world and leave the fighting to species actually built for it. I'm not quitting, Marcus replied. To his credit, his voice stayed steady. I earned my place here like everyone else. Wrong again, kid, Dravkin said. Did no one teach humans about threat assessment? His expression twisted into something unpleasant. Earned? You can't even carry the standard equipment load. You struggle with the basic endurance course. You're a liability. Worse than that, you're an embarrassment. Then he kicked him. A hard front kick to Marcus's midsection sent him flying backward onto the mat, gasping for breath. I straightened on the observation deck, my hand moving toward the comm panel. This had crossed a boundary. It was assault. I should have called security. I should have gone down there myself. I should have intervened. Instead, I hesitated. My hand hovered over the call button because that same misguided part of me wondered if this was still considered acceptable academy culture. A harsh lesson, yes. Brutal, certainly. But Marcus had not fought back. He had not called for help. He had not activated his emergency beacon. Maybe he was accepting this as part of the hierarchy. Maybe he believed this was the cost of weakness in a warrior-centered system. Zell and Quinn laughed, the sound bouncing off the walls. Marcus curled onto his side, struggling to pull air into his lungs, eyes shut tight in pain. Get up, Dravkin ordered. I'm not finished with you. This was wrong. Every instinct I had developed over 2 decades of teaching told me it was wrong. Yet I remained where I was, watching. I told myself I was observing natural social behavior. I told myself I was allowing cadets to resolve their own conflicts. I told myself whatever was necessary to justify staying uninvolved. I did not realize, and could not have realized, that my hesitation was about to stop mattering entirely. Someone else had already heard the disturbance. Someone else was already moving. Someone who did not care about rank, evolutionary theory, or the convenient stories we told ourselves about how order was maintained. Someone was approaching, and she was clearly enraged. Marcus slowly forced himself upright, moving with visible effort. One hand pressed against his ribs. He showed resilience, I will acknowledge that. Most cadets would have stayed on the floor, called for assistance, or given up. Marcus did not. He stood, breathing unevenly, his face pale, but his expression fixed with resolve. Dravkin circled him calmly, like a predator evaluating injured prey. Well, look at that, he said. The little human still wants to fight. Or maybe it is just foolishness. It is hard to tell with your kind. You never seem to know when you are outmatched. Just let me leave, Marcus said. Fear was clear in his voice now, the kind that comes with understanding danger. I am not looking for trouble. I just want to complete the program like everyone else. Quinn stepped in front of the exit, folding his arms. That is exactly the issue, he replied. You keep saying, like everyone else, but you are not like everyone else. You are weaker, slower, and less durable. You lower the standards of this academy. Do you have any idea what that says about the rest of us, having someone like you in our class? I noticed activity in the corridor beyond the training hall. Other cadets, drawn by the noise, gathered at the doorway. A Zendari, 2 Thorians, a Pishian, and even a few younger human cadets. Around a dozen in total. None of them intervened. No one contacted security. They simply observed. Some looked uneasy. Others seemed mildly curious. All of them accepted this as normal academy behavior. This was our culture in Clearview. Strength dominates. Weakness endures. Everyone else watches and learns where they belong. Watching it made me feel ill, yet I still did nothing. That failure reflected on me, and on all of us. Zell laughed, a low, heavy sound. I heard something about Earth, he said. Want to know what it was, human? I heard your world is so safe that your largest predators are big cats. Striped ones. Spotted ones. And bears, animals that eat berries and fish. Terrifying. Dravkin stepped closer. I come from Quix Prime, he said, where even the smallest predators can tear through combat armor. Where children learn to fight before they can walk. Where weakness means death, not encouragement and counseling. Marcus backed away, raising his hands in a calming gesture. I know I am not the strongest cadet, he said. I understand that. But I have other skills. Technical skills that matter. The coalition needs engineers, strategists, people who can solve problems. Not everyone needs to be on the front line. That was the wrong response. Quinn shoved him hard, sending him crashing into a rack of training gear. The coalition needs fighters, Quinn said. Everything else is support, pretending to be important. And you are not even good support. You are a liability. And what do we do with liabilities during war? Saul asked quietly. We remove them. The way he said it sent a chill through me. This was no longer simple intimidation. The 3 of them were feeding off one another, pushing themselves into something far more serious. Marcus tried to move toward the door, toward the cadets watching, possibly hoping someone would step in. No one did. A few looked uncomfortable, but not enough to act. Not enough to challenge 3 senior cadets who could easily retaliate later. Dravkin grabbed Marcus by the front of his uniform and lifted him with one hand. Marcus's feet hung above the floor. You know what I think? Dravkin said. I think Earth made a mistake joining the coalition. You are all too soft. Too focused on outdated ideas like fairness and equality. The galaxy does not operate that way. It rewards strength and consumes weakness. And you are prey pretending otherwise. He threw Marcus onto the mat. The impact knocked the air from his lungs. This time, Marcus stayed down, curled inward to protect himself. Stay there, Dravkin said. Maybe if you beg properly, we will let you crawl out with some dignity. Whatever remains of it. Marcus looked up. In his eyes I saw anger and frustration, not acceptance. The kind of restrained rage that comes from knowing defeat is likely but refusing to submit. No, he said quietly. I am not begging. I earned my place here. Zell laughed again. Still holding on to pride. Typical. You do not know when to stop. Some fights cannot be won. Let me explain that to you. He pulled his leg back, preparing to strike Marcus's exposed side. Marcus tried to roll away, but Zell was faster. The kick landed with a sharp, echoing impact. Marcus cried out and curled tighter. The cadets watching shifted uneasily. A few turned away. Still, no one intervened. This was the Academy's unspoken rule set. Strength instructs weakness. Natural order. Survival of the strongest. All the explanations we use to justify inaction. I should have stopped it. I should have acted immediately, used my authority, and ended it. Instead, I stood frozen on the observation deck, hands hovering near the control panel, restrained by decades of conditioning that discouraged interference in cadet hierarchy conflicts. Dravkin drew back his foot again, deliberately slow this time. Last chance, he said. Admit you do not belong here. Ask for mercy, and maybe we let you leave with only injuries. Marcus looked up, blood visible at his lip. His voice was rough but steady. Go to hell. Dravkin's expression hardened. Wrong response. His leg tightened, ready to deliver what would likely break ribs. The surrounding cadets held their breath. I finally grabbed the railing and reached for the panel. Then the door intervened. Training Hall 7 had reinforced doors, military grade, designed to withstand impacts, lockdowns, and pressure events. They required authorization codes and mechanical systems to open. This door did not open. It was torn free. The entire door and its frame ripped out of the wall with a violent shriek of metal and slammed onto the floor with a deafening crash. Everyone jumped. Dravkin froze mid-strike. The cadets scattered backward. I slammed into the observation window, my heart racing. Standing in the destroyed doorway, lit by emergency corridor lights and sparking wiring, was a human woman. Average height for her species, approximately 1.6 meters. Athletic but not bulky, she had dark hair pulled back into a tight ponytail and wore a standard cadet uniform. Nothing about her appearance suggested danger on its own, yet everything else about her did. The room seemed to grow colder. Not in a literal sense, I could still feel the observation deck's climate controls, but there was a pressure in the air, a heavy presence that made breathing feel harder. She stood completely still, arms at her sides, expression calm. Not forced calm or controlled calm, but a genuine, deeply unsettling calm. Her eyes moved across the room. She registered Marcus on the floor, bleeding and curled in on himself. She noted Dravkin with his foot still lifted. She saw Zell and Quinn standing on either side of their target. She also noticed the cadets frozen in the doorway, watching like prey that had just spotted a predator. All of this took her no more than 2 seconds. Then she spoke. It was a single question, asked quietly, almost casually. The kind of quiet that somehow carried more weight than shouting. Did I just see what I think I saw? No one replied. No one moved. The cadets in the doorway glanced at each other, then back at her, and slowly began to retreat into the corridor. Sensible decision. They understood danger when they encountered it, even when it came in a smaller form. Grukon slowly lowered his foot and turned to face her, trying to straighten himself to full height. He was at least 40 centimeters taller and 70 kilograms heavier. He was a trained Kralex warrior with combat certifications and academy tournament victories. By every rational standard, he should not have felt threatened. Yet he was clearly afraid. I could see it in his eyes, in the way his hands tightened and relaxed, in the slight step backward before he caught himself. Zell and Quinn reacted the same way. Both suddenly avoided eye contact with the human female who had just torn a door off its hinges. I quickly checked my datapad and pulled up her file. Riley Torres. Second-year cadet. Human. Earth origin, North American region. Combat scores, let's see. Oh. That was concerning. Top 5% in close-quarters combat. Top 3% in tactical training. Certified in 7 different martial disciplines. Instructor notes described her as exceptionally capable, but included a warning: Requires monitoring due to excessive aggression during sparring. That explained some things. It did not explain the door. How had she removed a reinforced door from its frame? Human females were not supposed to possess that level of raw strength. None of our intelligence reports on Earth suggested otherwise. Unless strength was not how she did it. I replayed the security footage. This time I paid closer attention. She had not grabbed and pulled. She had struck the door at 3 precise structural locations in rapid sequence. Weak points. Stress joints. Points where the frame met the wall. She did not overpower the door, she dismantled it through exact, targeted blows while moving at full speed. That was not brute force. That was technical understanding. Precision. The skill of someone who knew how structures were assembled, and how to take them apart quickly and decisively. I looked back into the training hall. Riley still stood at the doorway. She had not advanced or issued threats. She simply waited for an answer. The silence stretched, dense and uncomfortable. Droken spoke first, attempting to sound authoritative and failing completely. This does not involve you, Cadet. This is a matter between us and the Human Academy's internal hierarchy. You should leave. Riley tilted her head slightly. Only a few degrees. Somehow, that small movement felt more intimidating than any aggressive stance. Academy business, she repeated, voice still level and controlled. Is that what we call assault now? Interesting. I must have missed that regulation update. Quinn stepped forward, trying to support Droken and project unity. 2 Krellex warriors facing 1 human female should have looked imposing. It should have made her hesitate. It should have forced her to retreat. Listen, human, he said. You don't understand our culture or how things operate here. The weak learn their place, or they fail out. That's how it's always been. Your friend needs to accept that. My friend, Riley replied, and something in her tone changed. Not anger, not yet, but something colder. You have been hurting my friend. She stated it as a fact, as if confirming her understanding before deciding what to do next. Like a technician reviewing calculations before starting a reactor, methodical, exact, completely without emotion. That unsettled me more than anger ever could. Anger is heated, sudden, and unstable. This was different, cold, deliberate, and restrained. It was the mindset of someone making a decision, not acting on impulse. Zell waved a large hand in dismissal. He is not your friend. He is weak. He does not belong here. We were only making that clear. Now I suggest you leave before you cause yourself problems. There are 3 of us. You are alone. Do the calculation. Riley studied him, then glanced at Quinn, then Drovkin, and finally down at Marcus, who had pushed himself up on one elbow and was staring at her, eyes wide. She raised her gaze back to the 3 senior cadets. Then she smiled, small, almost imperceptible. It was not a warm expression. It did not reach her eyes. It was the kind of smile predators show just before they act. 3 of you, she said quietly. 1 of me. Yes, I understand the issue. This does not seem balanced at all. Drovkin's chest lifted slightly. At last, she appeared to understand the situation. At last, she recognized she was outnumbered. He began to speak, likely to warn her to leave before the situation escalated. Riley stepped into the room. Just 1 step, casual, unhurried, like entering a cafeteria rather than facing a confrontation. You should have brought more people, she finished. Then she moved. I have served through 20 cycles at this academy. I teach tactical theory. I have observed more combat encounters than I can count. Even so, I could barely follow what happened next. Fast is insufficient. Fast is what we see in simulations. Fast is trained fighters sparring under controlled conditions. What Riley did went beyond that. She surged forward like a launched projectile, reaching full speed in less than a heartbeat. Drovkin was her first objective. From a tactical standpoint, it made sense, eliminate the greatest threat first. Standard doctrine. But her execution combined precision with ruthless effectiveness. He outweighed her by 70 kilograms. He had a reach advantage of 40 centimeters. His arms resembled industrial machinery. None of that mattered. She closed the distance before he could respond, slipping inside his guard before his mind processed her movement. Her left hand snapped out, striking his forward wrist and redirecting his attempted grab. Her right hand drove into his elbow joint, forcing it past its limit. She pivoted, turning his locked arm into leverage, and redirected his mass against him. The physics were simple and unforgiving. His center of balance shifted, his stability collapsed, and his size became a disadvantage. She swept his leg, sending him down hard. She followed him to the mat, maintaining control of the arm, twisting it behind his back into a joint lock that had to be excruciating. Then came the moment that stunned me. She placed 1 foot on his back and used him as a springboard. She propelled herself off him, sending his body sliding across the training floor into a storage locker along the wall. The impact sounded like a vehicle collision. The locker folded inward. Drofkin Khan struck it face first with enough force to fracture reinforced plastle. He collapsed into a groaning mass, clutching his ribs, completely neutralized. Elapsed time, approximately 3 seconds. 3 seconds to disable a Quix's warrior with tournament victories in close combat. 3 seconds for an 80-kilogram human woman to overwhelm a trained fighter as if he were a practice target. Zil finally reacted, his mind catching up with what he had seen. He charged from behind, attempting to trap her in a bear hug, relying on his thoracic frame and exoskeleton strength to restrain her. From a tactical perspective, it was a reasonable response. Get her restrained. Use greater strength to hold her down. Wait for security. That assumption was wrong. A critical mistake. Riley sensed him approaching. She likely heard his footsteps, or felt the shift in air. I cannot say for certain. She did not fully turn around. Instead, she lowered her center of gravity, adjusted her stance, and drove her elbow straight back into his midsection with force usually meant for breaching tools. The impact sound rang through the training hall, a sharp crack that made everyone watching from the corridor flinch. Zell's exoskeleton prevented penetration, yes, but it offered no protection from raw kinetic force. The energy from the strike passed through the frame into his body, forcing the air from his lungs and overwhelming his nervous system. He stumbled backward, gasping, one hand gripping his abdomen. Riley turned immediately and kicked his knee joint, not to break it, I realized, but to strike the weak connection point between exoskeleton segments. His leg gave out. He dropped to one knee, still struggling to breathe, still trying to understand what had just happened. She moved behind him and locked one arm around his thick neck, securing her other hand around her wrist for leverage. A standard rear naked choke. I recognized it from combat manuals, but recognizing a technique does not equal being able to stop it. Zell clawed at her arm and tried to pull free, but she had position, leverage, and skill refined through what had to be years of training. His resistance faded. His arms fell limp. She held the choke for precisely 2 more seconds, then released. He collapsed forward onto the mat, unconscious but alive, breathing steadily, completely out. Elapsed time from Riley's initial strike to his loss of consciousness, maybe 5 seconds. Possibly less. I had lost track. My mind could not process the sequence fast enough to measure time accurately. That left Quinn. He was the smallest of the 3, but also the most aggressive. During Riley's takedown of his teammates, he had backed away, reached the equipment racks, and made a decision that would follow him for the rest of his academy career. He grabbed a training blade. It had a dull edge, but it was still solid metal and fully capable of causing serious injury. He held it correctly, assumed a combat stance, and tried to project confidence. All right, human. You got lucky with them. But I'm trained in blade work. I have certifications. I have awards. You want to keep going? Come at me. Let's see how tough you are against someone armed. Riley looked at the blade. Then at him. Then back at the blade. She slowly shook her head, and I am certain I heard her sigh, not from fear or concern, but disappointment. The sound carried the same tone a teacher uses when watching a student make an obvious, costly mistake. Really, she said. You're pulling a weapon after watching what I just did to your friends? That's your choice. Quinn tightened his grip. His jaw locked. Pride, ego, and fear blended into a combination that erased sound judgment. Shut up and fight. He lunged with proper form and correct execution. A clean thrust toward center mass, controlled extension, ready to retract and guard. Everything he had been taught. Riley stepped aside. Minimal movement, smooth and efficient, just enough to let the blade pass beside her ribs. Her left hand snapped out and seized his weapon wrist. Her right hand struck upward into his elbow, forcing the arm straight. She twisted his wrist sharply in a direction wrists are not designed to move. The crack was loud enough to be heard from the observation deck. Quinn screamed. The training blade dropped from fingers that no longer responded. Riley caught it before it hit the floor, one-handed, effortless, as if she had rehearsed the sequence countless times. She turned him, slammed his back into the wall beside the equipment racks, and drove the blade through his uniform sleeve, pinning the fabric to the surface. She leaned in close, nose to nose, her voice low but carrying clearly across the room. You drew a weapon in a fist fight. You escalated to lethal force against an unarmed opponent. That is grounds for court-martial, cadet. That means expulsion and criminal charges. She paused. So here's what will happen. You will stay right there, pinned to that wall, and think carefully about your decisions. Understood? Quinn nodded rapidly, tears from pain running down his face as he held his broken wrist with his free hand. Riley stepped back and surveyed the room. Drovkan was groaning nearby, collapsed against a pile of damaged lockers. Zell lay unconscious on the mat. Quinn was pinned against the wall. Total casualties, 3. Time elapsed, perhaps 40 seconds, maybe less. I checked my chronometer. 38 seconds. 38 seconds to neutralize 3 senior cadets who were heavier, had longer reach, and held the numerical advantage over her. The cadets who had been watching from the corridor had fully dispersed. That was a wise decision. I could not fault them. I observed from a reinforced viewing deck, and even I felt the instinct to flee. Riley walked over to Marcus, who was still on the floor, looking up at her with a mix of awe, relief, and disbelief. She knelt beside him, and her entire posture changed. The predator disappeared. In its place was concern, calm, careful, the kind of attention reserved for family. "Hey, Marcus," she said quietly. "Are you all right? Can you sit up? Anything broken?" He shook his head, clearly in pain. His ribs hurt badly, but he did not think anything was fractured. "Riley, where did you even come from?" She helped him sit up, supporting his weight and checking him with practiced efficiency. "I was in the neighboring training hall. I heard shouting and came to see what was happening. The door was locked. I didn't like that, so I dealt with the door." She delivered this explanation plainly, as if tearing reinforced doors from their frames was a minor inconvenience, not worth emphasis. I finally managed to speak, activating the comm panel to request security and medical staff. My hands were unsteady. 20 cycles. 20 full cycles of analysis. I understood combat theory. I understood capability. I understood the species that lived within this academy. Yet I understood nothing. Nothing at all. Riley got Marcus to his feet, keeping one arm around him to ensure he remained steady. Once she was satisfied he could stand, she turned toward the doorway, where a few cautious cadets were peering back in, and then toward the observation deck where I stood immobile. Her gaze locked onto mine through the reinforced glass. She knew I had been watching. She knew I had not intervened. Under that look, I felt diminished. "I think," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the hall, "we need to have a discussion, all of us, about humans, about pack bonding, and about some serious misunderstandings that appear to be spreading within this academy." She did not raise her voice. She did not issue threats. Yet everyone within hearing range, myself included, focused entirely on her. When someone incapacitates 3 armed opponents in under a minute, attention becomes automatic. Survival demands it. "You see Marcus here?" She gestured toward the injured cadet leaning against her. "Marcus is my friend. We completed basic training together on Earth. We served in the same unit. We have known each other for 5 years. 5 years. That matters to humans. That matters more than you realize." She paused to ensure no one looked away. Behind her, Drovkan groaned from the heap of twisted lockers. Zell began to stir on the mat. Quinn whimpered against the wall, still held in place by his own training blade. "Humans form pack bonds," Riley continued, her tone steady and precise. "We do not merely create alliances or professional connections. We bond deeply and for the long term. When someone is brought into our pack, they become family. You injure one of us, you injure all of us. You threaten one of us, you threaten all of us. This is not a cultural habit or a philosophical idea. It is embedded in our psychology at a level many species do not even have language for." One of the cadets observing, a young Xandari, raised her hand hesitantly. Riley acknowledged her. "But humans fight each other constantly," the cadet said. "Your history is full of wars. How can you be pack bonded and still kill one another?" Riley's expression remained unchanged. "That's a fair question. Yes, we fight each other. Yes, our history is marked by violence. Do you know why? Because we come from Earth. Capital E, Earth, a death world, rated Class 7 on the old Coalition danger scale before they retired that system for being considered too dangerous. I checked Earth's classification on my data pad. She was correct. Class 7. The same level as plague worlds and radioactive hellscapes. I had assumed it was an error in the database. Apparently, it was not. Earth tried to kill us, Riley stated plainly. Every day, for millions of years. Predators with claws, teeth, or venom, some could freeze you solid, others could burn you alive. Diseases, parasites, poisonous plants, earthquakes, volcanoes, tsunamis, hurricanes. Our planet was actively hostile to our survival. So we adapted. We became extremely skilled in violence, tactics, tool use, and cooperation, because if we did not, we died. She paused briefly before continuing. We fought everything, animals bigger, faster, or stronger than us. We fought and we won. We became apex predators on a planet full of apex predators. When other prey ran out, we fought each other, for resources, territory, ideologies. For thousands of years, we perfected the art of defeating other humans. You may have martial traditions. We have martial arts older than some of your civilizations. Our weapon development spans our entire history. Our strategic thinking comes from total wars fought against enemies who looked just like us. Marcus spoke, his voice rough. Riley, maybe ease up a bit. She glanced at him, her expression softening slightly. No, they need to hear this, all of them. She turned back to the audience. Here's what you need to understand about humans. We are friendly. We are cooperative. We will laugh with you, work with you, build with you. We are loyal to our allies. We are committed to the coalition. We genuinely want peace. She paused, letting silence linger. Then her voice dropped, colder, sharper. But if you harm our pack, threaten our people, or cross that line, you will quickly see that all of our friendliness was a choice, and it can be revoked. We can turn from your best friend into your worst nightmare in an instant. Beneath the smiles, cooperation, and teamwork, we are still the species that conquered a death world. We are still the apex predators who survived a million-year war against a hostile planet. I believed every word. How could I not? I had just seen her demonstrate it. Marcus is a tech specialist, Riley continued, her tone softening. He is brilliant with systems, tactics, and analysis. The Academy needs people like him. The Coalition needs people like him. Wars are not won by frontline fighters alone. They are won by logistics, intelligence, technical support, by countless roles working together. Strength comes in many forms. Want to see real strength? It's Marcus showing up every day, enduring abuse from people bigger than him, and never giving up. Real strength is staying committed to a goal even when the path is difficult. She looked down at Dravkan, who was sitting up, holding his ribs. You think you are strong because you can throw a punch. You are not strong. You are just big. If you want, I can also produce an even smoother, voice-over-ready version of this that preserves pacing and impact while keeping the vocabulary simple and neutral. It would read more naturally for an audience. Do you want me to do that? Strength is how you use your advantages. True strength is protecting those weaker than you, not harming them. You three acted like cowards and bullies. You ganged up 3-on-1 on someone half your size and took pride in it. That isn't warrior culture. That's cruelty. No one argued, neither Dravkan, nor Zell, who was now rubbing his throat, nor Quen still pinned to the wall, nor any of the watching cadets, nor me. What could anyone say? She was correct about all of it. Security finally arrived, 4 armed guards rushed into the training hall with weapons drawn. They paused when they saw the scene, 3 senior cadets injured on the floor, and 1 human female standing calmly with her arm around an injured cadet. The door had been torn off its hinges. The lead guard looked at Riley, then at the injured cadets, then back at Riley. Ma'am, he said carefully, we'll need a statement. Riley nodded. Absolutely, but first Marcus needed medical attention. He likely had bruised ribs and possible internal injuries. These 3 attacked him 3-on-1. I intervened. Everything is on the security footage, she explained, pointing to the observation deck where I stood. Instructor Kelt had witnessed the entire incident and could confirm it. All eyes turned to me. I swallowed and nodded. Confirmed. I saw everything. The 3 senior cadets started the assault. Cadet Torres intervened to protect Cadet Webb. Her use of force matched the threat. Was it proportional? I didn't know, but I wasn't going to argue, not after seeing what had just happened, and not after realizing how much we had all misjudged humans. Medical personnel arrived and began assessing Marcus and the 3 injured cadets. Riley stayed close to Marcus, protective and watchful, like a pack member guarding one of her own. I finally stepped down from the observation deck to the training hall floor, legs shaking. It was time to face the consequences of my inaction, to start learning what humans really were, not what we assumed. Everything I thought I understood about this academy, hierarchy, and strength had just been disproven by 1 human female, weighing 60 kilograms, with enough controlled power to tear down reinforced doors. The security investigation lasted 3 days, reviewing footage, taking statements, consulting regulations, and likely holding uncomfortable conversations in the station commander's office. I gave my statement, told the truth, and admitted I had watched without acting. That part still haunts me. The investigator's look of disappointment and disgust was justified. Station Commander VL, a strict Koran with 30 years of military service, personally reviewed all angles of the footage. She observed Dravkan, Zell, and Quinn corner Marcus. She saw the attack unfold, the escalation, and Riley tear the door off, causing about 15,000 credits in station damage. She watched Riley systematically take down 3 opponents. Rumor had it she watched the scene twice, unable to believe it the first time. The ruling came on the fourth day. Dravkin, Zell, and Quinn were expelled from the academy immediately. They received dishonorable discharge from the cadet program, permanent black marks on their records, and potential criminal charges under coalition review. Their military careers ended before they began. 20 years ago, she might have thought this harsh. Now, it seemed they had escaped lightly. Riley faced no charges. The case was clear: defense of another, proportional force, against a 3-on-1 attack. The damaged door was considered collateral and necessary due to the locked entry and ongoing assault. She did receive a formal note about excessive property damage, but it was minor. Commander VL actually commended her speed and tactical skill in the official report, using phrases like exemplary intervention and textbook application of force. Marcus recovered, bruised ribs, no internal injuries, nothing lasting. He returned to classes within a week. But something had shifted. Other cadets treated him differently, not with pity or contempt, but with cautious respect. He was under Riley's protection, and no one tested that. Beyond that, people started engaging with him, asking about technical systems, tactical strategies, and his expertise. It became clear that when you stop judging someone only on physical strength, other valuable qualities emerge. Riley quietly became a legend. Cadets whispered her name in corridors. Instructors referenced her in tactics classes, carefully avoiding the door incident. She didn't seem to care about her reputation, focusing instead on training, studying, and protecting Marcus, as well as other human cadets who gravitated toward her. Pack bonding was happening in real time. She had spent 20 cycles at the academy teaching tactical theory, observing combat, and evaluating cadets from many species. She thought she understood warfare, hierarchy, strength, and dominance. One human female, barely 60 kilograms of controlled muscle and focus, showed her she understood almost nothing. Riley demonstrated that strength isn't about size or raw power. The most dangerous opponents aren't those who look intimidating, but those who have survived against impossible odds. Humans are not weak, soft, or unprepared for combat. They are survivors of a planetary war spanning millions of years. They are pack hunters who learned cooperation out of necessity, and tactical experts who refined violence because survival demanded it. The academy changed after this incident, not officially, with rules or policies, but culturally. Instructors became more attentive to harassment, bullying, and 3-on-1 scenarios. Cadets grew more careful about who they targeted or underestimated. All human cadets gained new respect, partly from fear but also from understanding. Others had been judging them by alien standards, hierarchies, and definitions of strength, standards that did not apply. That was our error. I see them now and then in the cafeteria, Riley and Marcus sitting side by side with a mixed group of humans and non-humans, laughing at something, sharing meals, existing within that relaxed ease that comes from real friendship. A pack response triggers. I watch them and feel a cold awareness, a deep, instinctive recognition that likely sits somewhere in my species' evolutionary memory. These beings are approachable. Yes, they smile. They joke, they collaborate, they form alliances, they are sincerely committed to peace, truly reliable partners, genuinely valuable members of that coalition. I believe all of this without reservation. But I also understand now, with complete certainty, that their kindness is a decision they make every single day. And if you threaten their group, if you harm their people, if you force them to withdraw that choice, you quickly realize you are confronting the most dangerous predator the galaxy has ever produced. Not the largest, not the strongest, but the most dangerous. Because humans are more than fighters. They are survivors. They are solution-driven thinkers. They are pack hunters with millions of years of experience turning setbacks into leverage, transforming limitations into strengths, and converting impossible circumstances into success. They even formed bonds with wolves and reshaped them into dogs. They studied birds and created aircraft. They explored the atom and learned how to split it. They do not accept limits, and they do not accept loss. They adjust, they push forward, and they prevail. When someone harms one member of their group, when that boundary is crossed, the conflict is no longer with a single individual. It becomes a confrontation with all of them. It means facing their group loyalty, their deep bonds, and their firm refusal to abandon one another. It means opposing millions of years of evolution that taught them cooperation is essential for survival. It means challenging a species that learned to survive on a deadly world by working as one, by defending each other, and by never leaving their people behind. Riley Torres showed me this in 38 seconds of direct, precise, and overwhelming force. In that brief moment, she educated the entire academy. Everyone who viewed the security recording, heard the account, or saw the 3 senior cadets board a transport with their futures destroyed learned the same lesson. Humans should not be underestimated. They should not be judged by physical size. Their openness should not be mistaken for fragility. Most importantly, their group should never be harmed. If it is, the reason Earth is labeled a Class 7 death world becomes clear very quickly. You learn why humanity spent millions of years struggling to survive and became extremely skilled at it. You learn that the species offering friendship with ease is also the one that mastered a hostile planet through pure determination to stay alive. I learned all of this from a single human woman defending her friend. It was the most effective education I have ever received, and also the most unsettling. 20 cycles of experience were made irrelevant in less than a minute. This is what humans do. They alter outcomes. They reshape expectations. They prove that prior beliefs were incorrect, that established structures were weak, and that understanding was incomplete. Despite the fear, the shock, and the need to rethink everything I believed, I am thankful. Thankful that humans are allied with us. Thankful that they chose cooperation. Thankful they stand with us, because I have seen the alternative. I witnessed it in 38 seconds of focused aggression, and I do not wish to see it expanded beyond that. I do not want humanity to withdraw its goodwill toward the coalition. We are fortunate that they view us favorably. I hope we remember that, and I hope we never give them cause to reconsider. Because if the galaxy ever threatens the human group, I sincerely believe nothing could stop them. Nothing at all.